Again, I'm Scott Ritter, sitting in for George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows. Thank you very much for joining us. Right now in Gaza, there's a humanitarian disaster unfolding. It's been unfolding ever since the current conflict between Israel and Hamas broke out. But let's be honest, it's been unfolding for 75 years. 75 years since Israel declared its independence and began what is now known as the Nakba, the catastrophe on the Palestinian people, stealing their homes, stealing their land, murdering their men, and driving the survivors into an exile. In the case of Gaza, this exile has put them into what amounts to an open-air concentration camp, a giant prison of humanity where every aspect of the life of these Palestinian refugees is controlled and dominated by Israel. You know, when we talk about what happened on October 7th, we can reflect on the horror of the innocent civilians who got caught up in this, Israeli and Palestinian alike. Let there be no doubt, there were innocent Israelis who were killed as a result of the Hamas attack. At least we have the intellectual honesty, the integrity to recognize them as innocent. Unlike the Israeli chief of staff, who has said there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. You know, this reflects the approach Israel has taken towards the population of Gaza, indeed towards the Palestinian population as a whole. They don't treat them as humans. They don't treat them the way humanity should treat humanity. They treat them as something less. They treat them as animals to be ushered here, there, to be fed one day, not fed the next, to be left out in the cold one day, maybe bring them in the next. That's not how human beings treat human beings. And one has to wonder why it's taken Hamas this long to try and bring this issue to a head. Yes, Hamas has carried out terrorist acts, or if you're on the Palestinian cause, acts of resistance. It doesn't matter what label you put on it. You know, one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. We know how that works. But again, let's look at it from the viewpoint of the Israelis for a second. David Ben-Gurion, the founding father of Israel, Israel's first president, said that the Arabs and the Israelis, the Arabs would be idiots to make treaties and agreements with Israel because Israel has stolen their land. Israel has occupied their land. Israel has brutalized them. And he understands the source of the Palestinian angst, anxiety, anger. But he says it's okay because this is God's will, that the Holy Land is God's gift to the Jewish people, and it's just a tragedy that the Palestinians got caught in the middle. Moshe Dayan issuing a eulogy to an Israeli settler named Roy Rutenberg in 1956. Roy Rutenberg was killed in a kibbutz outside of Gaza by angry Palestinians who were imprisoned in Gaza. He said, we don't look to the Palestinians and blame them. The blame is not theirs. They are in this prison looking out at us with hate-filled eyes because we have stolen their lands. We have occupied their lands. We are tilling the lands that their father tilled. They hate us, and we understand that they hate us. We need to blame ourselves, blame our own. Why? Because we forgot, he said, that in doing what we have done, in seeking our destiny, we forgot that we must continuously hold the sword in our hand, that we can never forget that as we till the soil, we must also take notion of the need to repel the anger coming from Gaza, that the weight of Gaza is on our collective shoulders. What does he mean by that, the weight of Gaza? The weight of 2 million Palestinian human beings. These aren't animals. This is not a statistic. These are human lives. They matter. And yet, for decades, the world has not acted as if they do matter because we have given Israel a clean bill of health to do whatever it wants when it comes to resolving the Palestinian problem with no regard to the humanity, the dignity of the Palestinian people. Israel has implemented a policy. The English language, it's mowing the grass. Dahiwa is the policy that the Israelis have put on it. Mowing the grass, what does that mean? It sounds nice. It sounds copacetic, mowing the grass. It means mowing the people, mowing the Palestinian people, mowing the children of Palestine, mowing the women of China. And when I say mow, I mean kill. I mean murdering them, knocking them down like you would grass at harvest. Mowing the grass. It's Israel's policy of disproportionate force. It's Israel's policy of deliberately targeting civilian populations to crush the will to resist. It is by definition a war crime. You are not allowed to deliberately target civilian populations. International humanitarian law has made this clear. And yet Israel not only does it, but acknowledges it as its official policy, and the world is silent. The world is silent. Nobody speaks out about this. Nobody has spoken out about it. It's allowed to happen because that's the way it is. You see, in order to accept Israel in the family of nations, you have to accept the principles of Zionism, political Zionism. You have to accept the notion that Israel and the Israelis, it's an exceptional nation populated by an exceptional people, that the normal rules and regulations don't apply to them, that because they are God's chosen people, they are allowed to do unto others no matter what, and they will not allow others to do unto them. That calculus has changed. What Hamas did on October 7th is said, no, that game is over. That time is over. Israel will no longer be able to rest in peace, that the Palestinian people, through the resistance that is personified by Hamas, are rising up. And now what we see through the sacrifice of the Palestinian people who are paying a price because Israel is implementing its mowing of the grass as we speak. You know, a hospital was bombed. A lot of finger pointing going on. Who done it? Was it an Israeli bomb? Was it a rocket from the Islamic Jihad organization? We don't know. I mean, I think the circumstantial evidence right now points to this being an Israeli action. They acknowledge that they bombed. I mean, they say, we didn't bomb the hospital. We did bomb the garage. Well, if you take a look where the bodies are, whatever hit that hospital didn't hit the main hospital. It hit a parking lot, the garage, where the refugees were packed in because they had nowhere else to go, where the injured were packed in because the hospital was full. This massive humanity, these Palestinian civilians, these innocent people were packed into the garage of the hospital, and Israel acknowledges, yeah, we may have done that. So their whole story about a rocket flying there is a lie, But it doesn't matter who did it. Let me tell you why. Because in the hours leading up to the hospital being attacked, Israel was bombing Gaza. Israel was killing innocent Palestinian civilians. And in the hours that transpired after the hospital attack, Israel was bombing Gaza. Israel was murdering Palestinian civilians. Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things if Israel on this one occasion was responsible? No, it doesn't. Israel doesn't get a clean bill of health because they say, oops, this wasn't it, it was them. First of all, we don't know that, but let's say it was an errant rocket. That doesn't make anything Israel's doing right. It is still collective punishment. Those people wouldn't have been in the parking lot of the hospital had Israel not initiated an war crime. This illegal bombing of the civilians of Gaza, this collective punishment that Israel does, this mowing of the grass, this slaughter of the innocents. Nobody would have been in that parking lot had Israel not done that. So I'm sorry, Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm sorry, Joe Biden. I'm sorry, Tony Blinken. I'm sorry, anybody out there who's trying to promulgate the official Israeli position that we didn't do it. It doesn't matter. You are guilty and you're being judged by the world as you should be. A war criminal enterprise known as the State of Israel, and its day is done. We have populations rising in the street. We have a Palestinian population courageously suffering whatever abuses the Israeli government, the Israeli military puts at it. We have a collective resistance starting to coagulate around the cause of the Palestinian people. But let me leave you with this. It's one thing when the blood of the Palestinian children lies fresh on the ground, when you can see it, the redness of the blood, because it still contains the oxygen from the arteries of the heart that pumped it through the now dead body. It's one thing when you can smell the iron in the air of the blood. You can smell the death and you can become enraged. But soon the blood dries. Soon the body stiffens. The corpse must be taken away to be buried. The blood is cleaned up. What then? Right now, the streets of cities around the world are filled with people rightfully, righteously stepping out and protesting against the crimes committed by Israel, the crimes that are supported by the United States. And these protests are just, and they need to continue, and they must continue, but they must continue after the bodies have been buried, after the blood is dried, after the stench of death has gone away. You must stay in the street. You must maintain the pressure, or otherwise Israel wins again. This isn't the first time Palestinians have died at the hands of Israel. It's not the first time people have protested in the streets. But over time, the protesters go home, the dead Palestinians are forgotten, and Israel remains unchanged, unbent, unyielding, continuing the crimes. The Israeli enterprise must be brought to an end. I am not advocating the violent overthrow of Israel. I am not advocating the murder of Israeli citizens. I'm advocating a political change in Israel where Zionism is no longer the theology that drives this nation, that Israelis no longer view themselves as exceptional people who are anointed by God to bring pain and suffering on the Palestinian people, on the Arab population of the world. It's time that Israel stands shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the international community as fellow human beings, treating others as they want to be treated. If Israel wants to live in security with its Arab neighbors, then it must ensure that the Arab neighbors can live in security with Israel. Israel should no longer be allowed to have this army that it currently possesses. There's no need for an army of this side. Israel can no longer be allowed to have nuclear weapons and hold the sword of nuclear annihilation over the heads of its Arab neighbors, indeed over the heads of the world. Israel must become part of the community of nations, and it can only do so side by side with the Palestinian people that have been given the right to form their own state with equal rights, with all the privileges, all the dignity that Israel demands of itself. They must give it to the Palestinian people. We'll be discussing this and more on tonight's show. I look forward to having this dialogue. Again, Scott Ritter, standing in for George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. Commentator, and he's the editor-in-chief of Rai Al-Yom. I welcome you to the show tonight. Thank you for coming.
It is my pleasure to be with you. It is a very successful show. So now I have been spending most of my time actually following the situation in Gaza. You know, I was born in a refugee camp in Gaza, and my family are there. And to be honest, because the electricity cut off, the Wi-Fi is cut off, so I don't know who is dead, who is alive, still alive. Where are they? They were, have been evacuated from Gaza according to the Israeli leaflet which thrown to them, leaving your house, otherwise you will be bombed. So it is a very difficult, and there is no water, there is no food, there is nothing. The Israeli government, Israeli army stopped the vans of actually aids to enter Gaza. So it is blockade. Very, very brutal blockade, and I believe people, children are killed, as you say. It was collective punishment. It was actually genocide. It was death everywhere in Gaza Strip. So people, nobody caring about them. And the disaster thing when the Al Ahli hospital was bombed by the Israeli, and what makes people frustrated, angry when President Joe Biden, who's supposed to be the leader of the liberal world, who consider himself as actually the defender of human rights, he came out and said, no, it is not the Israeli who bombed them. No, it is the other side, means the Palestinian. Imagine the Palestinians are killing themselves and killing their children. This is the free America. This is the leader of the world. This is the country which is supposed to be with people who are really in such position. But unfortunately, they are completely the opposite and siding with the people who are committing the genocide against unarmed people. This is a situation which I'm really so frustrated and so angry, because the international community, the West in particular, they are taking the side of the killers. This is how they were telling us, lecturing us, that human rights is their value. To intervene for democracy is their value. And look what happened. They destroyed Iraq now, and they destroyed Libya. They destroyed Syria, and now they want to destroy the Gaza Strip, which is 150 square miles only, and it is flesh everywhere. So this is the problem. And they are committing massacres in that part of the world. To be honest, I am really shocked. I've been in this Western world, a free world, for the last 45 years, and now I see completely different world. I see, a very barbaric treatment of innocent people like my people in Gaza.
Well, first of all, I share your frustration and I share your anger. I don't share your background, though, and the reason why I bring that up this way is, there's another war going on in Ukraine. And when Russia surrounded the city of Mariupol, Russia was accused of instigating a siege, cutting off water, cutting off electricity, cutting off food. And even though Russia didn't do that, the accusation was there, and Russia was accused of committing massive war crimes, violations of humanity, etc. In the world, Europe, Europe says we have values. These are our values. We condemn Russia. And yet here's Israel. They announced that they are cutting off the electricity. They announced that they're cutting off the water. They announced that they're cutting off the food. They announced that they're cutting off the basic life support. And then they bomb the city as part of a doctrine, the Dahiwa doctrine of mowing the grass. And the world says nothing. Why do you think that is? Why is it the Western world cares about Ukrainians and they don't care about Palestinians? Why is the double standard?
Double standard because, the enemy is different. When the enemy is Israel, it is completely the opposite. They don't care at all. When the President Biden telling us that you must respect the international legality, you must respect the law of wars. But okay, well, you are lecturing us about the laws of wars. Okay, what are you doing now? But you are supporting the people who are actually dumbing the laws of war, never commit themselves to this. When you bomb a hospital, when you also sent warning to this hospital before you bomb it, you must close the hospital, otherwise we will kill you. I'm really shocked, to say, what about those ill people? What about those injured? Where shall they go? They immediately just by a leaflet saying you must clear it out completely. Where to go? And the other things, there is no medicine. Even those people, there is no medical helps at all. There is no medicine at all. So why this is happening? This is the problem which we are facing. The enemy, that is the Soviet Union, that's Russia. But now when it comes to Israel, it has to be above all the international law, all the legalities, all the religion, the they are actually worshipped by the West. But why? Because they don't want them to come back to the West. They get rid of them. They throw them to the Middle East, throw them to the Arabs, throw them to, again, to be replacing the Palestinian. Now they know that if Israel is defeated, that those Israeli will go back to their original countries, in Germany, in France, in United States. Scott, this is the facts. This is the facts. They don't want the Jews. That's the problem. This is the problem we are facing, and we are paying a very heavy price in the Middle East, in Palestine, because of this.
When I take a look at the events, I take a look at the Western media, and you're an editor. You, I'm sure, monitor all media. After October 7th, as the Israeli dead were being counted, CNN, MSNBC, American outlets, every time they talked to the family of an Israeli who was killed, they said, say their name. Tell us their name. What was their name? And notice I said an Israeli who was killed. When was the last time an American commentator, an American announcer, asked a Palestinian father, what was the name of your child? What was her name? What was the boy's name? See, we call them dead Palestinians. We don't say they were killed. They're dead. We refer to them as mathematical figures. We say 300 children were killed, 1,000 Palestinians. What are their names? Who are these people? And until we call them by their names, until we recognize them as living people, they will always be numbers. And this is one of the reasons why this has to end. We have to start shouting the names of the dead children. They have to have names. The names must be attached to faces. The faces must be attached to bodies. The bodies must be attached to souls. So when the soul departs the earth, the people feel the same pain that the parents do. But right now, we just treat them as a statistic. How can we change this? How can we turn the Palestinians from a statistic to a human being?
Scott, I'll tell you something. I have been in this country for 45 years in Britain, and we came here because of the freedom of expression. But when the Guardian, for example, sacked, a cartoonist simply because he, published a cartoons which is not actually according to Benjamin Netanyahu criteria, he was sacked. He was sacked. Now they don't give the other people opinion. They don't give them the space to talk about their miserable situation, to talk about their suffering or the people suffering. Okay, they always lecturing us, saying, look, you have to be rational. You have to prove everything with documents. You cannot just say things like that without any proof about it. Okay, President Biden is saying that the other side who commit the massacre and the genocide in Gaza or in Al Ahli Hospital, which was bombed just 2 days ago or days ago. Yeah. 1 day ago. So the problem is, okay, but then you said, do you have any proof? Did you send an investigation groups in order to check who committed this crime? You are the president of the United States, the superpower, the biggest superpower on earth in history. You are saying after 1 day that the Palestinians killed themselves, killed their children? What kind of rationality is this? How those people actually act. I'm really shocked. Okay, people usually send investigation group or committee to investigate, to see the proof, to see that what kind of missiles was used, what kind of bomb was used, and whether the Palestinian can have these kind of bombs. But to say that no, the Palestinian who did it, and we have information, the American Army information, telling us that the Palestinian who committed this massacre against themselves. What kind of people like that? What kind of rationality is this? Please tell me, Scott, you know them, you've been with them. Tell me, what kind of rationality is this?
Well, you asked me a question, I'll give you an answer. First of all, there's no rationality. We don't treat Arabs as human beings. We treat them as something other than a human being. Look at how we behaved in Iraq. What is the rationality of what we did to Iraq? Look at how we behaved in Libya. We claim to care about the Libyan population, but we oversee the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, and we've left Libya in ruins, falling amongst themselves. This society that had been built up to a level of greatness has now been destroyed because we don't view them as humans. We view them as numbers, as statistics. And sadly, that's what the Palestinians have become. Statistics, numbers. My struggle is how, and some people get mad at me sometimes because I become very emotional. I'm not, I'm supposed to be calm. I'm supposed to be rational. I'm supposed to be, but let me put it this way. If somebody killed my daughter, I would not be calm. I would not be rational. I would be furious. I would be enraged. And I think it's important that everybody who's watching what happens to the people of Palestine, the people of Gaza, treat every child that dies as their own child, to become enraged, to become furious, to become angry, to become emotional. The time for rationality is over. I'm not talking about going over to irrational acts of violence. I'm talking about the tolerance we give to the suffering of the Palestinians, the tolerance we give to the suffering of the Arab population at the hands of Israel and the collective West. We have committed massive crimes against the Arab world. And why the Arab world continues to tolerate these crimes is beyond me. I mean, I understand the politics of the Middle East, but help me with this. Why is Egypt saying if the Palestinians leave Gaza and come to Egypt, that is an act of war? Why is the king of Jordan saying if the Palestinians leave Gaza and come to Jordan, it's an act of war? The Palestinians are being used as a pawn right now, tragically stuck in the middle of this conflict between the Arab world and the Israelis, between East and West. But the people who are paying the price overwhelmingly are the Palestinians. When are we going to change this? When are we going to start treating the Palestinians with the respect they deserve?
To be honest, I'm not sure that the Palestinian will be treated as a human by the West. Simply because it seems, not only they are racist, but they are cruel. Imagine, no sympathy at all with more than 1,000 babies were massacred by the Israeli raids. I cannot see any, in the media in particular, any sign of sympathy to those people who were bombed, or the women who were bombed, or old people in the hospital in their beds. So this is the problem. The media now is doing a very criminal coverage of the atrocities which is taking place on Gaza Strip. So when the CNN, for example, putting the story that the Palestinian beheaded the Israeli babies, and then it is viral everywhere, and President Biden accept this fake news as a real news, and he also propagating about it. So imagine if the head of the United States, the head of the biggest superpower on earth, is saying, adopting a fake state and circulating it and using it to justify the bombardment, the genocide against Palestinian people. Until now, we don't know how many people were there. They destroyed a lot of buildings. They destroyed a lot of tower. People still under the rubble, still under the destruction of their houses. So how I cannot, to be honest, I cannot explain it. I cannot answer your question, Scott, simply because you mentioned we are not figure. Even I hope they use that as a figure. No, maybe much lower than that. They don't think we are a human being. If they think we are a human being, they wouldn't behave this way. And when the Israeli minister or the army general, he's saying those are animals, human animals. Imagine that. When the Israeli president saying that there is no innocent people, there is no civilian in Gaza, what it means? It means go and massacre them. go and beheaded them, go and bomb them. That's the problem which we are facing, and they are highly respectable on the Western world and in the Western media. This is the problem. This is not the media I know. I used to be, opinion writer for The Guardian. They never called me. I did it for years. They never called me. And, they banned me from appearing in all British televisions and British media. Well, I was the darling of the BBC. I was the darling of the ITV. I was the darling of Sky News. Now they don't come simply because the accusation is ready, anti-Semitic. Hey, that's the problem. And they use it as a sword, actually, to cut our heads, to ban us completely. So what I say, well, honestly, the West is losing the so-called values. Maybe there weren't any values, to be honest, to lose it. But now, even if there is little of them, now they lost it completely. And it is shame on them. It is shame on the media in this country. It is shame on the institutions. It is shame on the parliament, who are actually siding with the people who are committing the genocide against people under a blockade for at least 17 years until now. 17 years of a blockade, 17 years in a cage. So, and this is you consider themselves the super people of the world, the people of rationality, and the people who are intelligent, the people who are the first class, and we are even there is no classification of us to any class.
Well, I can guarantee you this, Mr. Atwan, you won't be silenced here. You'll always have a voice here. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of George Galloway and say that on the mother of all talk shows, you will not be silenced. Your voice is important. Your message is very important. Before we leave, words have value. You know this. You're an editor. Words are important. Words have meaning. Could you quickly, and I know it's a very difficult thing to say quickly because what I'm going to ask you is a very difficult thing. There's a word out there, Nakba, the catastrophe. In the Arab world, it's known by everybody. Every Palestinian knows this. But in the Western world, in America, in England, it's unknown. What is the Nakba and why is it relevant to what's happening today?
Yeah, the Nakba happened in 1948 when the British government at that time, and with the West actually, and other countries, they sided with the Israeli. They sent Israeli armed gangsters, and to kick and to kill the Palestinian. They committed massacres like Deir Yassin, where about 300 people were massacred, in a very, very brutal way, that to frighten the other to leave the country. And about 750,000 in 1948 Palestinian were actually kicked out of their land, and one of them is my family. In that time, I wasn't born in that time. So this is Nakba because a whole country is demolished, and then they replaced innocent people by other people. And this is the imperialistic powers which did that. Now this same Nakba is repeated on Gaza Strip, and maybe later in the West Bank. They are actually killing people, massacring people in order to evacuate Gaza Strip, so the Israeli reoccupy it, and to get rid of the so-called terrorists, as they call it, those people who are defending their rights and want to have their country back. This is the problem. Yeah, they kept saying to us as Arab, look, you have to be rational. Sorry to repeat it again. You have to talk to your enemy. You have, fighting is not, it wouldn't take you anywhere. Sit with them, talk to them. You will have a state. Like we gave the Jews a state in Palestine. If you do the same, we will actually give you a state. So we believe them. And the PLO, sit with them, sign a treaty on the loan of the White House, Oslo Agreement, hoping that they will have a state. They never had one, nothing at all. So this is the problem. This is the real Nakba. The real Nakba is they don't listen to, deprived people. They don't listen to people who are considered about maybe 10th class, not one class. So the just one class, second class, third class is actually reserved for them only. And as you mentioned, Scott, we are not even figure in their calculation. We are not even a human in their calculation of how and the vision of the people in the world. But this one, it wouldn't continue. Honestly, I believe now they are very, very well known. They don't believe the war in Ukraine, and I follow all your work there. They will not win simply because they create this war and they plotted for it. And usually they don't do things in one day or 1 month or 1 year. They were planning for this war exactly like they were planning to topple Saddam Hussein and to invade Iraq and to kill 1 million of the Iraqi innocent people. So now it is the turn of the Palestinian. It is not enough for them, the Palestinian, to be homeless, to be under blockade, to suffer, to see their children massacred. No, they must actually also to be kicked out. Now, where now? To Sinai. And they want to convince Egypt to accept those refugees on their Sinai, in their territories. Imagine that. The plan is there, and they are carrying out it. They are implementing it. Another Nakba on the Gaza Strip.
There's a saying, a tiger doesn't change its stripes. Israel's a nation born of a Nakba in 1948. Their hands are soaked in the blood of the Palestinian people they murdered and evicted from their lands. Israel today is carrying out another Nakba. It's been an endless Nakba, an endless crime against the Palestinian people. I want to thank Abdel Bari Atwan. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for providing us your insights. Thank you for showing us your humanity and sharing the humanity of the Palestinian people.